guilty of. I've seen it in my marriage coming from me.
Oh.
Our husbands say things, and well, for me, and I'll be like, "What you really mean, or what you're saying is," and poor Len's like, "That's not what I said."
No, Sean always says you give me way more credit than I deserve. Like
Yeah.
when I ask you a question, that's really what I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. And I'll even say stuff like, he'll say things and I'll say, no, what you're really trying to say.
Exactly.
Kind of like he already knows he's not telling me the full. It's so bad. And so it's something that we're seeing on social media. We're seeing with believers. We do it to each other as we experience and observe. I know I am just the increase in division in between believers, and it's more than differences of opinions. I think it's the way we engage with each other. So sad. The article was talking about with Kathy Newman, which they named this thing after her. Kathy Newman and Canadian psychology professor Professor Jordan Peterson, and they were talking about gender inequality, and the interview went viral. Not because of the content, but because of the way Kathy Newman dealt with the interview. So whenever you could tell, I was telling Jamie, you can tell she started that interview ready to fight. Mm-hmm. So she read his book and probably was highlighting and writing and was ready to get him during the interview. Don't we do that in marriage? Don't we do that with believers?
Do it everywhere?
Yeah. Exactly.
Unfortunately, I think that's one of those things that has only gotten worse because of COVID, because we're in our own bubble and we forget about differences in opinion when you haven't been out. Anyway, that's a side note.
There's the COVID, but I think with COVID and the pandemic, also the increase in engagement on social media. Sometimes I think it's easier to do on a keyboard.
I was going to get there later. It's so much easier to put that out there, and especially even with people I don't even normally engage with, right?
Yes. And so we discount people's opinions, their words, and assign a motive. We are not God. That's one of the points, the first point the man said. We are not omniscient. We don't know people's hearts. We cannot see people's hearts. So it was great. Examples of what we do. So somebody says on social media, so yeah, racism's still a problem. And our response is, so what are you trying to say? We should abandon the gospel and embrace neo-Marxism? Or someone will say, marriage is a complementary union between male and female. The response, so you're saying you hate gay people? If someone says, you know what, during the pandemic, we should shelter in a place to protect the most vulnerable. So you're saying you're anti-freedom and want us all to bow to tyranny? You'll just see that. Or labels thrown of, you know what you are, you support whatever. Fill in the blank. Based on whatever you have in your mind. And so I shared like a wide range. It doesn't even matter what it is. The problem is we're not really listening to each other. Right. And it's not our differences that is separating us. It's our behavior. It's our lack of humility. The article gets into more specifics, but you had some things you wanted to share.
I did. Well, as we kind of went through these, we talked about, first of all, that we are not God. And so many times we try to play the part of God. Like, I see something you've done and I know you meant that to be hurtful to me, right? I know that. And that can be as simple as something in my everyday marriage to, somebody, on social media to, I just assume I know your motives.
Siblings, we'll do it with family members.
Anybody.
Yeah.
And then I hold that grudge, right? I have seen, I'll be honest, I'll be really transparent right now, Jannelle. There have been so many posts, you can call them political, so many different posts where then I hold that little grudge. And then even though I'm still going to church online, I see those people, or maybe, or I have to call them for something, and I'm upset about that thing, that I'm holding this grudge.
Yeah.
Because I think you're motivated to hurt me.
Yeah.
You meant that personally to me, when you may not even know that that's a supposition that I hold. And so that, we're not God. I don't know your motives. You don't know my heart. And so we have to quit pretending that we do. The second was, what was the second one? Oh, we bear false witness. We violate clear biblical commands. If we really love our neighbors, are we going to call them an idiot? Are we going to say when someone's sharing their point of view, sometimes that's really sharing a part of them in that transparency, and we say that's foolish or that's stupid or whatever. And I just think, especially on social media right now, we can say these things up to people we don't even know, and I think we think, oh, I don't know that person, it doesn't matter. I actually saw that exact post yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Somebody said, that person in that article is an idiot, or that person is a fool. And somebody said, well, you can't say that, which was what I kind of was agreeing. And they were like, this person I don't know, they don't know me, it doesn't matter. Well,
Wow,
it does matter.
it does
because
matter.
if we say that about people we don't know on social media, does that mean I can think about it about the person who's in front of me at the grocery store?
Yeah.
Or the neighbor? And it's going to get a lot closer to home before we even think twice about it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And before, I'm going to be calling somebody I love an idiot.
Yeah.
Because we just get used to being okay with, well, it's okay in this kind of
Right.
context.
Right. It's almost kind of like the exchange Jesus had with the person that was like, well, when they were talking about murder. And Jesus was like, if you hate them in your heart, it's murder. We always want to downplay our sin. And that, what you just talked about, is straight up slander, gossip. It's sin, but we separate because we say, well, they're not in my circle. Or like you said, it could be somebody and they're not listening. Sin creeps in, and little leaven, gets bigger. Carmen says it's the demonizing of people. The article kind of talked about it in terms of we make caricatures of people, and the tarring and throwing feathers. It is that when you attach the motives, it's easier to disagree because, not so much disagree, but you make them the enemy. They're the enemy.
Right.
We've lost the skill of like, oh, okay, I disagree with your idea. You are not your idea.
Right.
Like, we're okay. We could disagree and then be like, hey, what's up? What you doing with your kids tonight? We can't do that anymore.
No. I think that's so true. I don't know how to fix that. I mean, because it's definitely snowballed over time, and now it's to the point where you're right. We can't see past that idea or that one thing, I was in a training a couple weeks ago on this is going to be a big rabbit trail, but on implicit biases. And the way we even started the conversation when she started the training was like, right now, before we get into this, we're going to anticipate that we need forgiveness for one another. We're going to give preemptive forgiveness for whatever we're going to say in this space. And then that same anticipatory forgiveness. And then we're going to forgive ourselves too. Because I know that even today, I will go home and say, why did I say it that way?
Yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
It'll wake me up in the middle of the night and say, why did I say that? I didn't mean it that way, mostly because I'm afraid of what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about, right? You are hearing what you assume you're going to hear from me because of who I am.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the color of my skin, maybe it's the way I talk, maybe whatever.
Yeah.
We have so many biases. And so just trying to pull that back in ourselves, I think, and realizing we have to look at ourselves first. And the number 4, where are we seeking justification from? You said we want to downplay our own sins.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I want to know that I'm better than Jannelle. Like, well, she sinned and I sinned, but Janelle's sin is probably worse.
Yeah.
Right? Because of how she thinks. And we make that more our goal than just being justified and right with Christ.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a big red flag.
Yeah. And when that's your standard, right with Christ, it's hard now to turn to your neighbor and be like, well, you did, because you're doing what one of the Beatitudes says. You're mourning your own sin.
Right.
That helps with humility, which is one of the notes. I'll share some scripture I looked at in the context of this article, but Jannelle is resonating, and Nick is as well. Rachel, what's up? Jannelle says, yes, I do that all the time. I say something that I know is biblical, and then I kick myself for saying it. But then also what you said about being misunderstood, and it just reminds me, as we try to seek unity, especially with those we disagree with, what a gift it is to people to say, hey, you said such and such. What did you mean?
Right.
You know, or why do you, like, what is it about this that makes you have this position? Can you explain that to me a little bit? Giving people the chance to share their heart, believing them and listening to them. Even if it's on social media, you can easily do a private message and say, hey, if somebody surprises you and puts a post, ask them,
Right.
hey, what does this mean to you? Can you explain? Or, you know, that's a gift we can give to people. Callie says, great topic. Nick says he struggles with this. He says, good stuff. Totally guilty of this, but conscious of it and working on being better at it. One of the things I looked at as I try to be better at this, I think it's an us issue. It's not like, oh, it's just that our society is getting divisive, or it's just that people are getting, no, we are tripping. I looked at the Beatitudes. If you want to study the Beatitudes, I thought before they were like pick and choose. Like, oh, look, I'm good at that. Blessed are those. So I'm in that group. It's really like a follower of Christ. This is what they look like.
The whole definition.
The whole thing. That's what Jesus was sharing. And so I made a list of them. Poor in spirit, you know, poor in spirit, humility and understanding your position in regards to the Lord. Those who mourn for their own sin, for example. The meek, that's a whole lot of like humility versus like what we got going on in terms of attaching motives and I'm right, they're wrong, or they must not be a Christian. Hunger and thirsting for righteousness, merciful. Pure in heart, peacemaker, a peacemaker. If you strive to be a peacemaker, you would be the one to say, hey, I didn't understand you, or I think I'm getting it wrong. Can you explain yourself? Trying to generate peace between each other.
Peacemaker is a private messenger, right?
Yes.
Peacemaker in any, even if you're going to try to do it gracefully, social media, there's not a lot of grace on there.
Yeah.
So even if you're, I think I like that. Peacemaker equals private messenger.
Yeah,
or
I like
text
that.
message. Because when you're putting someone on the spot, whether it be, like I wouldn't say to Jannelle in front of a room full of people, well, tell me what you meant about that, Jannelle, because I thought that was kind of rude. Even if I said that in a nice tone, she's still in front of a whole room of people.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so peacemaker is a private discussion, right? We go to the person who has wronged us. And I think that's the other thing. When we try to peel back those biases or you're not hurting me unless I've made that your motive. Like your post or your blanket statement, I've got to come to you and ensure that was actually your motive before I can react so quickly and violently.
Carmen says, that's right. Amy says, it does matter in terms of how you treat people. She says, when we stand before God, we will be held accountable. And we talked about Brian's favorite book, Ecclesiastes, and it talking about I forgot, but the scripture's kind of saying a little bird kind of hears the things that we say, even about the king. You know, so God sees your heart and he knows your heart in terms of how you're reading people and the motives you have. It also changes the way you treat people. This is a topic we'll probably get into later in the week, but how loving your neighbor starts inside of you. It's growing in holiness. It's walking in the Spirit. It's the fruit of the Spirit that transforms the way that you love your neighbor because it starts with you. Jannelle says, thank you so much for talking about this. I casually quoted the scripture the other day at lunch with my husband and work friends, and it was crickets. It bothered me all night. Rachel says, makes me think of the scripture, let every man be swift to hear. Yes, we talked about that.
Yes, we did.
Slow to speak and slow to wrath. Man, that order will take care of a lot. We usually tend to do the reverse. Carmen says you have to believe what they want or you're not a Christian. Because you have love. Do you get that?
Because you have to believe what they want. Well, yeah, I mean, that's how many of us are operating. I think she's saying, like, that's right now, you know, Jannelle and I could have two very different point of views on a subject, and we both say we're Christians, but I say I'm right, so she must not be. Yeah. She's either not a Christian, she's not right with the Lord, or I'm going to make some utter judgments based on that, right? And that's just not okay. I think we talked about earlier, unity isn't all having the exact same opinion. It can't be.
That's right.
There's no way.
Yeah.
You know, because we all are raised. Food to the appearance, to the way we respond, the way we talk, how we talk. I don't think God created us to be robots.
Right.
If he would have created robots,
Right.
right? And so I think it doesn't mean we have to agree. We have to agree on the things that are the most important, which is the gospel.
We are united in the gospel. We shared John 17, where Jesus prayed for the unity of believers. And what stuck out to me in that scripture, if you go to John 17:21, he told the Father, by their unity, the world will know you sent me. So we got to fight for that in light of our differences, being united in the gospel. And in order to do that, we got to respect each other. Mm-hmm. We got to love each other. We got to listen to each other. It's time to go. Carmen, what's up? Carmen is yes.
See, you're ready to preach a sermon on John 17.
Jannelle, Mike, what's up? Callie, what's up? She likes the topic. Carmen, Amy, Nick was here. Mike, Daniel, what's up? And I see the people on YouTube. What is wrong with them?
I see no mom, no husband.
Donnella says good morning. We got to check to make sure they come on tomorrow.